Morning class, bright and early. I am in the panic room. I have a nice hot cup of coffee. And most pleasing to me, I have stats homeworks to grade. That really is something that makes me happy, being able to see how much math we are learning in a short period of time. Let's get into it. Homework number one had three components. First was math proficiency, second was survey methodology, and the third was showing some basics proficiency and skills in the Stata program. So the math proficiency largely dealt with conversions and some basic algebra that will be helpful when we get into more complicated equations and summations, things like that. So the first one, convert 1.25 into a fraction. Well, to do that, I multiplied 1.25 by 100. That multiplied the top, 1.25, and the bottom, the denominator, which is 1, by 100 to get me 125 over 100, which I then reduced to 5 over 4. That would get full credit. 1.25 or excuse me 1.25 is the same thing, but it's not displayed as a fraction. So we haven't transformed this really at all. We have just presented it in a different method. So order of operations here: solve 2 plus 5 squared minus 1 times 2. So I needed to do what's in the parentheses first. I needed to do what's in the parentheses first, then the exponents, then my addition and multiplication. So this reduces to 7 squared minus 2. 7 squared is 49, minus 2 is 47. Okay. Number 3, I have 3 and then in brackets 12 minus in parentheses 2 plus 7. Okay, so I did the inner parts of the parentheses first. So 2 plus 7 is 9. This reduces to 3 times 12 minus 9. 12 minus 9 is 3, so I am left with 3 times 3 equals 9. Not bad. Okay, a couple of solving for unknowns. What we had to do here was when solving for x, when solving for an unknown, we want to put our unknowns on one side of the equation and we want to put our knowns on the other side of the equation. In this case, I applied constants. If I do one thing to one side of the equation, I can do the same thing to the other side of the equation, and that does not change what's happening. It just creates a more easily solvable equation. So what I did here was I added 6 to both sides of the equation. 3x minus 6 equals 30. So I added 6 to the left side of the equal sign. That reduces to only 3x. And then I added 6 to the right side of the equation. So 30 plus 6 equals 36. So now I just divide 3x by 3, that leaves me x, and I divide 36 by 3, which gives me 12. So for number 4, x equals 12. All right, next x equation. Solve for x. 2x plus 3 equals 5x minus 2. The basic algebra commands here, again, we want to put our knowns on one side and our unknowns on the other. So on the right side, I added 2 to remove that from the equation, and added 2 to the left side. So I am left with 2x plus 5 equals 5x. Then I could subtract 2x from the left side and subtract 2x from the right side, which leaves me with 3x equals 5. So x there equals 5 divided by 3, or 1.67. You could have presented that as a fraction, and you would be just fine as well. That's just my preference. Okay, most importantly was the summations. And if people lost points, I strongly suspect this is where the points were lost. So solve for summations. You'll notice I have a table here with 3 variables: x, y, and f. And I can organize a ton of different summation strategies using these 3 variables. So x, y, and f all have 4 different values. For x, it's 3, 6, 2, and 1. For y, it is 2, 3, 4, and 5. For f, it is 3, 2, 2, and 3. So x, y, and f, those are all going to stay together. Or put another way, each row of the table must be kept together. So in this first one, where I see the summation of x, squared, the parentheses are telling me I have to first take the summation of x and then square it. The summation is always the last thing you do, except in the circumstances where parentheses are telling you to do it before something else. So 3 plus 6 plus 2 plus 1, well, 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11, plus 1 is 12. So the summation of x is 12. You can see that at the bottom of the table. Squaring that gives me 144. So 6a is 144. 6b, I have the summation of, in parentheses, x minus y squared. So follow my order of operations here. Parentheses comes first. So I need to be doing for each one of these rows, x minus y. I do that first, then I square it, and then I finally take the summation of that. So if you follow along with my line here, in the first column, x minus y is 3 minus 2. And then I square that. So 3 minus 2 is 1, squared is 1. Going to the second row, 6 minus 3 is 3, squared is 9. The third row, 2 minus 4 is negative 2, squared is 4. And then the final column, 1 minus 5 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. Right? So 16 plus 4 is 20. 20 plus 9 is 29. Plus 1 equals 30. So your answer here should have been 30. Now, there was a nice little trick. If you picked up on it, you could have gotten away with doing a lot less work for this third one here of 6C. Notice that this the instructions here are the summation of f and then in parentheses x minus y squared. Well, I already did x minus y squared. I already did that for each row. So notice how I just took what was on the top, what was in B, and converted that down below. So I know that I am multiplying 3 times 1 squared because I already did 1 squared in the earlier equation here. So f times x minus y squared, that's going to reduce to 3 plus 18 plus 8 plus 48. And that's going to sum to 77. So follow your order of operations, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. In that order, left to right. Follow your parentheses especially because those are used to divide terms within any type of complicated equation. Okay. Let me know if any of that is confusing or unclear. Moving on to the second page in part 2, we were asked to identify levels of measurement. So the first variable, are you a citizen of the country you live in? That's nominal. That's clearly a nominal variable because you would answer yes or no. Or if you want to make it slightly more intuitive, you could say no, but I'm becoming one. Yes, and I wasn't born a citizen, but I became one. You can throw in some extra bells and whistles, but at the end of the day, you can't mathematically rank order these choices. You are either in one category or you are in a different category. And that means it's a difference in type, not a difference in mathematical amount. And that's the telltale sign that you are dealing with a nominal variable. Number 2, what is your highest educational degree obtained? This one I took right out of the GSS. And also I answer surveys all the time that ask me this, and you will too at some point. What is your highest degree obtained less than high school, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, graduate degree? Well, there is no consistent mathematical difference between those variables, between those options, responses. But it's clear to me that if you have a high school degree, you have a higher educational degree than if you didn't finish high school. If you have a bachelor's degree, you have higher degree attainment than if you only had an associate's degree. So because these can be hierarchically ordered, but not in a consistent mathematical way, It's hard to know exactly the difference between a bachelor's degree and an associate's degree for individuals. That makes it ordinal. Number 3, how much do you trust the college's administration? On a scale from 1 to 7. Okay, so we have a bit of a Likert scale going on here, the 7-point Likert scale. Classic way to do social science research. This is ordinal. Hopefully everybody sees that. This is ordinal because an ordinal variable, as I previously explained, allows you to clearly rank these things hierarchically. So somebody with a response of 6 on this, that's a person who clearly has more trust in the college's administration than somebody out of 3. But exactly how much? We wouldn't go around and saying somebody who answers this as 7 has 1 more unit of trust than somebody who answers this as 6. And that's consistently applied to everybody who answers the survey. We don't do that. So that makes it ordinal. However, how many sociology classes have you completed? That's going to be interval. If I asked you that, the answers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you're able to know exactly the consistent distance between the units on the scale. So the difference going from 1 class to 2 classes is the same as going from 2 classes to 3 classes. It's consistent, it's meaningful, it's got a natural 0 point. You can't really chop this up into smaller outcomes. So this is an interval level variable. Okay. All right, as for my bad survey questions, how satisfied are you with your professor's organization and work ethic? Well, that's a double-barreled question. I could be really organized but kind of lazy. I could be a really hard worker but horribly disorganized. So how do you answer this question? This is a double barrel. And a double barrel is any question that is actually more than one question at once. And that's confusing. All right, students, how do you rate your experience in this class so far? Would you say it's excellent? Would you say it's very good? Would you say it's average? Well, I would say excellent. I'm having a good time so far. I don't really need to look any further than that. No, this is clearly an example of an unbalanced scale. I haven't given you any way to respond if you're having a bad experience. If you're having an unpleasant time in this class, I haven't given you a way to answer that, which makes this an unbalanced scale. Now, number 3, what do you know about smallpox? Well, I know that it exists. All right, some people might say, I know that that is a thing. Other people might say, I know that that's a thing, and I know it was declared eradicated in nature in 1979, and that the last major outbreaks of smallpox in the world occurred in Somalia and in the former Yugoslavia. Right? Do you see how that's touching on a much higher level of knowledge? So that's vague. This is just a really vague question. What do you know about smallpox? Some people might know the social effects of smallpox. Some people might only know that it's a virus. It's vague. This is clearly a very vague question. And then finally, don't you agree, students, don't you agree that college students consume way too much alcohol? I've created a pretty loaded question here. So the rule that I'm violating is that this is a leading question. Don't you agree? Well, yeah, I guess I agree. I mean, most of you are underage, right? I guess I would agree with that. No, it's a ridiculous question. You can't lead with quite such emotionally charged language. So that's leading. And then finally, getting into Stata, I wanted you, I was really testing 2 things with this. 1, can you look at responses and identify levels of measurement? And 2, can you deal with some of the basic commands that we learned in lab? So you needed 3 variables, 1 nominal, 1 ordinal, and 1 interval. You could have picked any one that you like as long as you went through the following steps. I wanted you to tabulate the variable. That was just to examine the response scales and examine if there's any missing data. So then I wanted you to look at the code book to find what's missing and what the labels are supposed to be. So we would tabulate the variable using the tab command, tabsex, for example. Then we code it for missing if we have values that are not meant to be valid categories. Secondly, we wanted to, we wanted to label the values using the code book to guide us here. How do we know that 1 is male and 2 is female for sex? The code book had to tell us. So we did that, and hopefully you did too. And then finally tabulated again so I can see that it has been labeled, it has been coded for missing, and you want to draw one conclusion from it. So you could say, just as I was playing around with this, for your nominal one, you would say about 55% of respondents in this of GSS respondents are male. About 8% of GSS respondents have the zodiac sign of Taurus, for example. And that's all you had to do there. I suspect this part was a little bit more complicated than you would have thought. Once you actually have to go in and try to create code, it is a little difficult and it takes some practice. And that's why we practice Stata every week. So anyway, that's the homework. I will get your grades to you as soon as possible. But thanks for your effort in this class so far. And if you you did really well on this homework, I commend you, and let's keep that up. If you got your butt kicked on the homework, then it's time to now is the time to get on top of these things before we start getting into much more complicated math and we start getting into a more intense version of the schedule. So thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all on Thursday. We're going to go on a magical standard deviation adventure together. Thanks. Bye.